Another morning, aside from being really hungry, I just woke up with the same as usual. I hadn't died. Well, you did not participate. The only real difference this morning was that I could go outside as I pleased. It was still misty out, and I couldn't see much beyond the dorm. A settlement isolated in mist, a space cut away from the world. Could we really leave this place? We could. It had to be physically possible. The idea that we couldn't was just speculation. No matter how much this place has defied reality, but what was that thing? Why had Chiemi collapsed? How sane were we? Was this even really happening? Human senses and memories often lied to us though just dismissing anything that didn't make sense as an illusion wasn't a good idea either. The thing had actually visited us. Its appearance was strange, but I had little proof that it was something supernatural. Thus, that had to be human. I doubt it. I really doubt it. As for the reason Chiemi collapsed, there were quite a few possibilities. Unless it was a trick she schemed with that thing beforehand. That being had to have been too much for her to handle emotionally.
あいつ、なんて言ってたっけ?
The wolf succumbed to the smell of Yomi, cleanse, shelter and dream daughter of Fujiyoshi. Was it? It basically seems like a fancy way of saying, get back to your room and sleep. So it was a warning from those who made the rules. Then, was that something on the mountain? Great Lord Shinai's side? No, to be honest, I'd say it was more like something from the other side. I mean, it kind of fit my image of Yomibito. It wore sutras in place of clothing, and the cloth over its face reminded me of a funeral shroud. The word corruption seemed particularly fitting. It had a sinister aura to me anyway. Though that was strange. Great Lord Shinai was the enemy of the forces from Yomi. Yomibito wouldn't act as his messengers. These contradictions. It was quite eerie and alluring unknown, but that didn't matter now. My goal was to let Chiemi and the other supporters we gathered escape. I returned to the room, made my futon, and started searching again. The futon was the only thing in the closet. There was nothing I could use as a weapon. I gave up, left the room, and went to Chiemi's. If the worst had come to pass, I had to fulfill her last request. The door was locked.
やはり、そうか。
So the wolf was... I knocked. She came out after just a few seconds. Apparently she was already ready to go.
武器が欲しい。
そう思って。
The knife. She gave me a pretty large knife with a teeth, probably used for hunting.
君のは
前の包丁はなくしちゃったから、それきり。
任せて。
I had zero confidence in pulling it off, but sometimes bravado was important to hold on into. We went to Haru-chan's room. It wasn't locked. The room was no bigger than the others, but it was a huge mess. But it didn't look like there was a corpse present. She either already woken up and went outside without locking the door, or her corpse was somewhere outside like Yoshitsugu-kun. I'd gained a habit of expecting the worst.
安永君は
同じ。
メイコのところへ行こう。
Today's mist was denser than usual. Just extending my arm was enough to make my hand hazy and indistinct. I kept on walking, knife in my right hand and Chiemi's hand in my left. The settlement was way too quiet. We headed for the village plaza. I almost tripped a few times on the field path, but Chiemi kept me on my feet with just a few warnings. I could keep going as long as she was with me. We arrived at the plaza. There was no one there. Basically, there was no need to use the dining hall as the go-to gathering spot anymore. We passed Rikaku Uematsu's house. It didn't look unlocked, but I couldn't hear any indication of movement from inside. Was she asleep, or did something happen to her? Whatever the case, I had no choice but to ignore her.
ここだっけ？
Meiko's place was open? Thankfully, all I found inside was just messy futon. It was the same as Haruchan's room. But now that it happened with 3 people, it was safe to assume something wasn't right.
ちえみ、悪いけどこれ、返す。
I gave her the knife and grabbed a stick lying against the house.
どういうこと？
実際に使える武器がいるから。それより、どこを目指そう？
やっぱり、お堂かな。
As it turned out, that was exactly where the other inhabitants were, with the exception of one anyway.
遅かったね。いや、私らが早すぎたか。
Haru Makishima, she was in her usual agitated state. Tayamawaki, she was silently chanting something to herself. Meiko, Haru-chan had her hands on her shoulders, but she still looked anxious. And
お
finally,
はよう、ちえね。それに、Fusaishi Haruakiさん。
Yasunaga Oribe, his face was grim. Those were all the people here, meaning that
ついに、野里さんか。
a simple process of elimination was enough to know who was gone. Anyway, it was time for the first battle.
メイコ、おいで。
She tried to walk to us. But Haru Makishima stopped her. It was time. I raised my stick and
本性を表しましたか、Fusaishiさん。
Yasunaga Oribe stood in my way. He had a menacing-looking grass sickle in his right hand. He readied it for a swing at me.
あなたが全ての不幸の根源だ。最後だと思って今朝、実力に訴えるのは予想してましたよ。
嘘。何？
ちえねえは騙されてたんだ。この人が汚れの元凶だよ。この人を宴に混ぜないのは失敗なんだ。この人をくくってれば、母さんも義継もみんな死ななくてよかった。
Again, baseless. All of this, all of the motive are baseless. Again. What's the proof?
待って、そんな。
今日はこの人をくくるんだ。そうすれば全部終わるから。安永くん、よくないな。誰も知らないストーリーを軸に大事な話を進めたら。
あなたもでしょ。どうして急に殴りかかろうとしたの？
おお、そりゃそうだ。ちなみに行動理由は人質奪還ね。
だからそれは。
まあその前に、ここで混乱の極みを味わっているちえみちゃんにフォローをしておく許可をくれよ。
They didn't say another word. Chiemi and Meiko were the only one who seemed confused at all. Basically, the others had prepared for
誰が
this.
狼かはさておいて、まず大事なことは2つ。まず、昨日僕はメイコに対してこの集落を脱出することを持ちかけた。それは昨日皆に聞かれたと考えるべき。村からの脱走は禁忌、それは知ってる。問題は村からの脱走をみすみす見逃す側も汚れの対象になるかどうかって点だから、早朝にメイコの身柄を抑えた。これはまあ話としてわかる。もう一つ、昨日ちえみと安永くんは対立関係になった。そのままならば今日の宴では両者の一騎打ちだ。基本的にははるちゃんの票をほぼ確定票で抑えている安永くんが有利だろう。しかしタエさんとメイコという不動票がある以上確定じゃない。だからちえみと和解して唯一の部外者である僕を狙うのが 一番安全確実だと踏んだんだよね。
違う。
違わない。だから僕を黙らせるためにメイコを人質に取っている。
違う。あなたがこの子を人質に取って僕らにひどい要求をすると思ったから。
僕にそんなことをして何の得がある？ぶっちゃけ僕は宴には関わってない。君だって納得してたはずだ。
それが間違いだったんですよ。じゃあこの場の他の誰が元凶だって言うんですか？僕もハルちゃんも家族を失った。タイバーだって匠さんを失った。僕らはみんな大事な誰かを失ってる。じゃあ失ってないのはあなただけだ、久石春明さん。
So that was his story, huh? Not good enough! Sorry, Yasunaga-kun, but you are a bad storyteller.
君は嘘とか無茶を言うときに雄弁になる癖があるみたいだね。
ふざけるのは大概にしてください。
さすがに今はおふざけは自重してるよ、安永くん。君は人を感情で動かそうとしすぎている。そしてちえみのことも舐めている。君の言動のおかしなところを感情論で押し切れると思っている。確かに全ての悪事を僕のせいにすれば感情的には収まりがつくだろう。しかし一方で君は自分のキャラを大事にしなさすぎだ。冷静沈着、年上の暴論にも理屈でこうするキャラをね。
勝手な分析やめてください。
まあそれは10年だか何年だか君を見てきた村の方々が決めることだ。僕や君が決めるものじゃない。もちろん君だって心境の変化があってもおかしくないほど辛い体験をしたっていうのはわかる。じゃあ聞いてみようよ。君が完全に理性を失って僕というよそ者に怒りを向けているのか、あるいはとても冷静に僕をくくって今日の宴を空振りさせ自分の有利にことを運ぼうとしてるのか。つまり昼の死刑を回避して得をする陣営の人間なのか。どっちだと思う、ちえみ。
She gasped and looked at Yasunaga Oribe. There was suspicion in her eyes, not trust.
言えばよかったんだ、僕のことを狼だと。それでも言わなかった。あくまで元凶と言い続けた。自分が狼だと知っているから。嘘をつくのが苦手なんだろう。かといって勝負どころじゃつかなきゃならない嘘はつかなきゃダメなんだよ。
ちえねえ、こんな奴のことを信じるの？
そうやって理屈に対して感情論しか準備してないのは君の甘いところだ。君は最後まで理屈で戦うべきだった。
うさい、あんたに何がわかる？ヘラヘラしてるだけで何もしなかった、できなかったくせに。
Here a point there. I did feel like shit about that. I should have joined the feast from the get-go. If I had, I wouldn't have wasted time on pointless arguments and autopsies. However,
僕はな、自分で考える頭を持ってたくせに早々に迷信におもねって弟と母親を見殺しにした君に対して一人の大人として率直に怒ってるんだぜ、安永くん。
once I said that, Yasunaga Oribe hung his head and fell silent. 10 seconds of silence were enough to everyone to realize he'd lost the argument. However, the expression on his face was abnormally calm.
確かに僕は狼ですが。
Oh. He spoke as if it wasn't a big
あなた
deal.
はいくつか勘違いをしてる。
But that just made it seem even more abnormal.
もう僕らは勝ってるんですよ。
He tossed away the grass sickle. His voice wasn't nearly as passionate as before. It was cold and rational. He demonstrated a confidence rooted in sound logic, but I couldn't understand what he meant.
もう一人の狼出てきてください。
What was the point of that?
いいね。 ヤス君。
ええ、もういいです。
私がもう一人の狼よ。
I couldn't make sense of this. Had he decided to graciously concede by selling out his partner that he'd been cornered? No, he said he already won. Even if there were 2 wolves, there were 4 of us. They lose in votes. My answer came from a completely My answer came from a completely unexpected direction.
兄ちゃんやっぱりタイバーと兄ちゃんが狼様だったんだね。
A shot of pure, unadulterated joy. Haruaki became the least comprehensible of anyone's present. She ran to Yasunaga Oribe and hugged him. He hesitated for a moment but reciprocated. Meiko, still as clueless as ever, slowly walked over to us.
お兄ちゃん。
ごめんな。お姉ちゃんに隠れときな。
Haruakiさん、これって一体。
わからん。
It's a traitor! It's a town traitor! I really didn't. But I had a feeling that something wasn't quite right for a while now, and I suspected it made clear now. I was certain of it, and it left me feeling uneasy.
OK。主導権は君に移った。説明を聞かせてもらえるかな。タエバー、お願い。
もうずっとヤス君には頼りっぱなしだったからね。
So she wasn't even denying it.
ちーちゃん、メイコちゃん、
Not me?
これは話しちゃおらんかったけどね。昔、ずーっと昔に、私が娘だった頃に、上藤吉の門が山祭りで酔って言うとったのよ。読み意味の宴についての本当のお話をね。
The truth? Tayamawaki told us a story that was very similar to the legend they told in the strange village. Well, it was less like it was similar, and more like I was looking at it from the opposite angle. The part about Great Lord Shinai sending the 5 guardians to help people was the same. 4 of them then teamed up with the humans to murder the wolves. However, in the real story, the good and bad sides were completely reversed. Apparently, the people and the 4 guardians joined Yomi on the very first feast of the Yomi Purge. Basically, all of them were Yomibito. They all ganged up on, overpowered, and expulsed the wolves, who tried to resist until the very end. That meant this land had belonged to the Yomibito for a long time. The wolves were summoned here by none other than Shinai-sama himself. Some people of Yasumizu were given the blessing of the wolves and had to free Yasumizu of its Yomibito. Basically, it was a holy war for them. And that was the truth behind the feast of the Yomi Purge. Tayamawaki continued her explanation.
そんなもんは上藤吉の方々が私たちをバカにしてから考えたもんじゃと思ったのよね。だけどそうじゃない。本当じゃと親鸞様は加護をくださるとともにそう言われなさった。じゃからね、ちーちゃん。あたしらはみんななきにしてやらねばならんかったのよ。つらかったけどもね。匠も苦しそうにしとったけれど。でも、こうしてやらねば、読み人は救われんと。親鸞様は言われるのよ。
Tayamawaki was crying. Alright, so she was now a confirmed culprit who believed the murders to be salvation. There were just 2 more points I didn't understand. The corruption and the eerie message. Most things made sense if you switch Shinai-sama's enemies and allies. The idea that people wearing those outfits could be the good guys was kinda weird, but well, that was the culture here. Or maybe only the Yomibito, me, saw them as evil. Maybe that was the story here. The problem here was that
そんな話知らない。
Chiemi didn't know this.
僕は加護を受けた時に知った。
So even Yasunaga-kun didn't know about it. I remembered some of his words.
学校の先生の受け売りですけど、思想を与えればいいんじゃないですか？要は、自分たちのしていることが正しいと思えればいいんじゃないかって。
Oh, about the something about the war, like people sending their own people to war. They do it to make them think that they're doing the right thing. He really hated lies, didn't he? He basically told me the truth of things. This feast actually had a system that made zealous murderers of people. Whatever. Enough about Yasunaga Oribe.
なぜハルちゃんは知ってた？
She was glad when she realized Yasunaga Oribe was a wolf. Basically, she already knew the real story, that the wolves were the good guys. Why? Who told her?
狼様が私おじいちゃんが死んだ日に私の夢に出てそう教えてくれたんだ。
Nonsense. Insanity. Did she seriously decided to throw her life away over a dream? But on the day Oji-chan died, he died the night before Haru-chan tried to run away from the settlement. She believed the dream. She started to despair over being surrounded by Yomibito and planned to escape. Well, that made sense.
でもタイバーはきっと正しい言い伝えを知ってると思った。タイバーが知らないはずないって。なのに言い出さないからもしかしたらって思ってたし、兄ちゃんは二人で話した時もしかしたらって思って。
It all clicked. She believed. She believed the sudden revelation, despite the lack of proof, and that the man she liked was in the minority that had justice on their side. And right now she said she would betray the humans and join the wolves. She believed Yasunaga Oribe was right with all her heart. And so, the wolf, Yasunaga Oribe, had 3 votes for the feast.
知恵姉とメイコが僕に投票しても、僕を殺すことはできない。ルールを曲げてフサイシさんを宴に呼んでも3票だ。決選投票をしても1人に選ぶことはできない。かくして2人とも欠けることなく狼の勝ちです。楽勝でしたね。
I saw it clearly now, the wave are gone. I understood.
春秋さん、それって。
そうだね。安永くんの言う通りだ。ちえみたちの、いや、僕たちの負けだ。
Everyone had different reactions to my words. Jimmy backed away and gasped. Tayamaoki closed her eye and sighed. Meiko didn't seem to understand anything. Yasunaga Oribe didn't react at all. Haru Makishima was smiling. Oh man, all I really had left was struggling like the filthy, annoying adult I was.
はるちゃん。
何よ。あ、兄ちゃん。このフサイシさんはどうなるの？
このまま何も関わらないのならば、僕は無視する。
そう。
Was that relief just now? Sorry, but I couldn't enjoy my sudden jump in popularity.
なきにせいでもええのかね。
必要なら、親内様がどうにかするさ。
That dispassionate tone didn't do much to convince me he truly believed this ridiculous superstition.
でも、黙ってはいないのでしょ、あなた。
さあね。正直、 そっちが善玉なら、読み人側に手を貸すのも微妙って気はしてきたし。
If you are the good guys, maybe I should help the bad guys instead.
春秋さん。
思ったより薄情なんですね。
都会人の合理性とでも思ってくれれば？
見損なったとは言いませんよ。正しい判断です。とても正しい。
Big words.
ちょっとそんなのないでしょ。あなたあれだけ知恵姉のことが好きとか言っておいて見捨てるの？
Good point. Well, yeah, I was pretty damn cold-blooded.
痛いところを疲れるばかりでも不愉快だから、反論しちゃおうかな。はるちゃんよ。
何を？
わかってると思うけど、君は死ぬぜ。それで、いいんだよな。
This was pretty damn bad, honestly. Apparently, this great Lord Shinai was a huge scumbag. She should have told her that much.
君に聖典を教えたところで、君が人側であることに変わりはない。君は狼になったわけではないだろう。匠さんや野里さんを殺したわけではないだろう。
殺してないけど。
なぜだか知らないが、君は聖典を知ってしまっただけのただの人だ。だから人が負けるということは、君も死ぬということだ。二人きりの時の話で、安永くんが狼である可能性に思い当たったと言っていたね。安永くんがミスでそんなことをするとは思えないから、きっと君の挙動不審から、君がそういう役回りだと感づいて、それで自分の正体を確定させないままに誘導して、君が誘いに乗るかどうかを試したんじゃないかと思うわけだけど、狼はそういう役回りの人がいることを知っていたということじゃないのかな。
それがどうした？
Oh, he actually said that? This was the part where he was supposed to start lying, but not denying that. You basically admitted that you were an absolute scumbag who used Haru-chan knowing you'd have to kill her. He was that bad at lying? Then how did he survive for long? Wait, something was very wrong. I'd really misunderstood something here. And soon enough, my hunch was proven right.
ほんと。それが何だってのかしらね。
Ooh. Haru-chan. Harumakishima's voice was brimming with joy. A carefree smile laced with seductive intoxication.
読み人はくくられなきゃならない。汚れた、醜い、おぞましい私たちには、狼様の渦と爪だけが救いなの。誰だってわかるわ、そんなの。だから兄ちゃんは香織さんを手にかけたんだもんね。お母さんを幸せにするために。
ああ、
その通り。
兄ちゃん、春も幸せにして。
Yasunaga Oribe brought her closer without even a flicker of emotion crossing his face. Tayamawaki watched them with a broad smile. What the hell are these people?
それで知恵ね、どうする？おとなしくするなら救ってあげる。
Translation: I'll kill you. I underestimated the madness of Yasumizu. I realized too late that the feast of the Yomi Purge wasn't just a system where zealous murderers killed each other. There was something here that completely shattered the people on a fundamental level. It was like a gear of madness. Those who knew the real story found salvation in death. That insane tale instantly convinced people that it was right to agree and to find peace in that. And I was actually surrounded by those very people. Understanding that made me remember that she was from here too. Chiemi was trying to take a step forward. I should have realized this earlier. She who was afraid of God was just like them, who accepted their salvation. Both brands of madness probably had roots in the exact same things, so she was just as susceptible to madness as they were. However, it wasn't too late for her. Yasunaga Oribe's expression stayed the same, but right before I looked away from him, I saw a slight change. It was bitterness, irritation, something out of place in the victor's face. That made me realize that his plan for this scene wasn't lost to madness. Then I had no choice but to take advantage of the opportunity. I grabbed Chiemi's hand. I pulled with so much force that she fell on her backside, but I didn't care. I dashed past her and swung my weapon at Yasunaga Oribe. I hit Harumakishima once, Tayamawaki twice, and Yasunaga Oribe 5 or 6 times. Then I ran to Chiemi and Meiko, who were completely dumbfounded and fled the hall. There was no time to waste. I had to hurry up and escape. If I didn't, I'd waste the one chance he'd given me.
ルアキさん、何なの一体。
なあちえみ、
何？
あの安永君ってのは本当に頭が良くてやがるな。
何のこと？
I was probably irritated, and not just because of hunger. It was because of the epiphany I had, and because it had taken me so long to reach it. Yasunaga Oribe had a different motive.
芹沢ちえみに惚れている君は彼女だけは手にかけたくなかった。そして残っていた合理的思考でわずかでも彼女を救う可能性があるのは脱出しかないと判断した。しかし大っぴらに脱出を認めれば他の全員に汚れが及ぶがゆえに、僕が全員を叩きのめして無理やり連れて行ったという形を取らざるを得なかったということなのだろう。くそ。
What? If he didn't intend to let me run away, he wouldn't have thrown away the sickle. He was basically signaling for me to understand and finally attack him. In the end, he was far more clever than me. I never stopped dancing to his tune. Regardless of, no, exactly because of that, I had to help these two escape, no matter what.
なんせ大人だからな。
大人だからな. By the way, using an adult voice without relying on one yourself was a very adult thing to do, Yasunaga Oribe. Good luck with the rest. We crossed the field paths, went past the stone graves, and over the boundary. Descending the cliff took a lot of patience. It didn't seem like they were chasing us, so we could go down carefully. Chiemi's expression was dead. She'd been hit hard by a sudden revelation. The game board had been flipped on her. She'd lost, and now she had to suddenly say goodbye to her old friends. It was hard to just laugh that off. Should I have told her about Yasunaga-kun's intentions? I did consider it, but couldn't bring myself to. He chose to save her by sacrificing the relationship. If she knew, she'd probably want to go back to the settlement. Or maybe I just didn't want to say it because of my pride as a man. That was fine by me too. Being able to shrug off such unfairness was one of the blessings of adulthood. So I consoled Chiemi, shouted to Meiko to be more careful, and generally talked as much as I could. The mist grew even denser.
ねえちえみ、もう村の外って言ってよくない？
生徒に
やったぞ。ほら何事もなく抜けられた。
やった
そうそう。さあ川を下って町に戻ろう。
川どっち？
I couldn't see anything. I hadn't just lost my bearings. It was worse than that. I couldn't even see Chiemi or Meiko's face, and I was actually holding their hand. What? Really? We were already at the bottom of the cliff, walking on the stones below. We heard water, so it was clear we were close to the river, but I didn't know if we could keep going right now.
ちょっと休もうか。
無理よ。
ちえみ、
I thought she was gonna freak out again, but
違うの。
she stopped me.
聞こえないかな。水音以外に何か。
Confused, I strained my ears.
何か聞こえる？
ワンワン。
Hmm?
追ってきてる。
They were acting strange. I strained my ears again. Was it above us? I could hear the faint sound of rustling leaves from the top of the cliff.
逃げなきゃ。もう疲れた。春明さん、メイコちゃんを。
The intensity in Chiemi's voice made me take the situation seriously. What if the sound was just the wind though? Was she jumping at shadows? But I would have been lying if I said I wasn't worried. After all, a question remained unanswered, and according to the legend, this was their HQ. Wait, they were the good guys, right? Still, this was a normal place. I had to get out of here ASAP. After a while, I was forced to recognize the anomaly. We couldn't reach the river. I ran along the riverbed. It should have been small, just a few meters wide. But even after 10 minutes of running, there was no sight of the river. We couldn't get anywhere. It was just like ring wandering, a phenomenon where people wandering snow peaks lose their sense of direction and just end up walking in circles. However, even if my sight was limited, how could anyone get lost on such small riverbed? I could hear the stream right next to me. This felt so wrong. I was as good as blind. All I could trust were my ears, but that just made me realize how useless that was to rely on. I trusted my sense of direction less with every passing second. So, the sound of parting grass in the distance, the sound of claws stepping on the rock. I felt like they were getting closer. I couldn't be certain. Eventually, we slowed down. The others didn't say anything, but they were clearly exhausted. We hadn't eaten for days, not to mention the dense mist made our clothes all uncomfortably damp and cold. We walked along the riverbed without uttering a single word. The sound of water wasn't getting closer, but something else sure was. Something. Things I didn't know scared me. The chill and the fear strangled me like a garrote as I carried Meiko, passed out from exhaustion, on my back. How long has it been like this? Suddenly the hand I was dragging became heavier. Jamie had stopped.
春明さん。
She called my name through the mist.
何かな？
I tried to sound lighthearted, but I wasn't confident I pulled it off.
もうダメだ。これ。
Her voice suggested the image of a grim smile.
何を言ってんだ？
Unlike before, I couldn't manage the defiant tone I'd use whenever she said something stupid. It was true that something unnatural was happening, and that there was no simple explanation. And Chiemi was wearing down both physically and emotionally.
ちょっと休もう。それで進めばすぐ抜けられる。大丈夫だ。
ダメだよ。無理だよ。
どうして？
あのね、私がいたらきっと川は越えられないんだ。
Huh? What? That was
だっ
like...
て言ってたじゃん。読み人は私たちの方だって。だから
彼岸を渡れないとでも言うつもりか？
だって私、小さい頃からずっと安水のものを食べてきた。
Hmm?
それに、私は汚れてるから。
ちえみ！
見ないで。
Oh, I turned around and pulled her by the arm. Is she really a zombie? I looked at her face from point blank range. It was covered in brown and yellow blisters. Before I could even be surprised or disgusted, I just kissed her. The sugary taste of blood, pus, and rust filled my mouth and spread throughout my throat. I didn't care. Then, to discard all unnecessary emotions, I hugged her as hard as I could. My breathing and thoughts ceased. I kept it up until the pain began to fade, then disappeared completely. Eventually, our lips were separated again. She prioritized words over breaths.
ごめんなさい、ごめんなさい、ごめんなさい、本当、ごめん。
Even so, I hugged her tight. I couldn't lose to something so ridiculous. She weakly hugged me back, but she couldn't keep it up for long.
行こう。
だから、
行こう。
The presence in the distance was definitely closing in. We walked. I felt like I'd been walking for several hours now. Our pursuers were close now, but I had no intentions of rushing. Jamie was slowly but surely getting weaker by the second. Her speed slackened with each step, and the weight on my arms was becoming heavier. I could hear her cough and vomit something out. She apologized every time she did, and I basically replied with, "It's alright," using different words every time. We walked. Jamie's feet began to make wet sounds with every step. We walked. Maybe we actually been here for only a few minutes? We walked. Jamie kept apologizing. Maybe we haven't even moved a single meter. We walked. Maybe none of this was real. Then, maybe nothing that happened here would be weird. Eventually, Jamie called out to me with a hoarse voice.
春秋さん。
The fact that she said something different had sparked a moment of baseless hope. And
あ
so,
りがと
her gratitude was followed by another wet sound.
う。楽しかった。
With those final words, her way vanished. It was strange. After all, I was still holding her hand. Or rather, only her hand. With a splash, her bodily fluids spread around, while her limbs and entrails just collapsed. Jamie was gone, leaving behind only her rotting hand. Perhaps her remains were piling up in the mist ahead. I had a strange certainty I couldn't touch it ever again. Was this what they called a Yomibito? I couldn't accept this, no matter what.
私の何でもいいから、どこか一部だけでも外に連れてって。
I put the hand in my jacket pocket. I took Meiko, still sleeping, and shifted my grip to make carrying her easier. I continued walking for too long. Meiko woke up. She was shocked that Jamie was gone and cried for a bit, but then said she wanted to walk by herself, so I put her down to the ground. The very next moment she was dragged into the mist. It was clearly a malicious force that did that. To me it looked like a furry arm. A scream resounded. It was an inhuman, animalistic scream. After hesitating for a moment, I turned to run and caught a glimpse of something beastly within the mist Meiko had disappeared to. I ran. And ran. Suddenly, I felt myself step into something wet. I had arrived at the river. It was meaningless. I lost everything, and in the end, only I survived.
私の何でもいいから、どこか一部だけでも外に連れてって。
Was there any meaning in fulfilling that promise? No. The meaning was for me to find. That was why I had to survive and find a forest. Yeah, I still had that hope back then. Back then? They finally broke through the mist and showed themselves. Oh, of course. This really was hell, wasn't it? This wasn't the human realm or nirvana. It was a river of hell, So of course both sides of it were gonna be hell. There was no splash when we threw Takumi-san's body in, was there? The moment we went into the mist and down the cliff, our body vanished from the world and reached a place from which there was no return. And I finally had no choice but to accept it. As someone who had taken in the flesh and blood of Ayomi Bito, Chiemi, I couldn't escape either. That was why I screamed stupidly, only managing to run a few steps before their sinister claws tore me apart. Damn it, where had I gone wrong? Descending into Saranaga? Not believing Chiemi when she told me we couldn't escape. No, it went even back earlier than that. I already knew the answer. Shit. I should have participated in the feast. I really wish I'd been part of Yasumizu and participated in the feast of the Yomi Purge. Maybe I could have gotten a different ending than this. That was the last thought that went through my mind before all faded away. What? Prepare yourself for the next what? Raging loop. Raging loop, whirls and claws.